Hello everyone, my name is Mike and I am the co-founder of the Wanda Pratnicka Center. In the today's podcast I am going to explain further the mechanics of the astral world, the emotional world of humanity, and what especially is happening to souls who have lost their physical body and who have not decided to go into the higher vibrational fields. That is the place we are supposed to go after our physical body has gone. What you need to know is that the soul has built before the birth of the physical body a plan for the coming incarnation, meaning that all the details of the incarnation have been planned and you are just going through that path, through that karmic path that you and other very wise souls have helped you create in order for you to have a perfect possibility of expanding during the coming lifetime in order to receive as many blessings as it's only possible. Sometimes the plan is very, very tough because when we are on the other side, we are just of the opinion that we are going to manage everything in the coming life. But the situation is coming different as soon as we come here and see the limitations of the physical world. These lessons are being accomplished with other souls we have already been in touch with or we have not been in touch with, but still we are playing roles during the coming incarnation. And these roles are, for example, the punisher and the victim. So these roles are just there to make you aware of your weaknesses, and these have the aim to build strength within the soul. There are many difficulties on that path that are originating from the fact that the lesson is just way too difficult in itself, and it needs to be accomplished during many lifetimes. So sometimes it's very difficult to see the purpose of its own life because it's just split into many incarnations. On the other hand, also souls are learning in different pace. Some of them are learning very fast, some of them are learning slowly. So in the end, the death itself is a phenomenon that has to occur to any of us. We can make our lives longer, we can do many things with the time we have, but in the end, that physical body will have to go. You would not even want to have it forever, because that would bind you in a sphere that is very materialistic, that is very dense. And that is a great burden for the soul who is vibrating at a much faster pace. So the soul is getting during that process many opportunities to leave the physical level. That means that we are getting chances to go away from the physicality, and we have many occasions for that. Sometimes lives are getting very difficult, and that is just too much burden for the soul. But it is by no way anything like the suicide. The suicide is a very wrong action that is going to have a lot of negative consequences for the future. So the death of the physical body can come as you achieve all of your lessons, but it doesn't have to. Or you can also leave the physicality the moment you see on the soul level that these lessons that you have planned for the coming incarnation, that these lessons are no longer possible to accomplish. So the fear of dying is a great difficulty for human beings who are at the moment living on earth. The fear is making it impossible to live fully, because if you are afraid of dying, you are also afraid of living. This is just like two sides of the same coin. So the acceptance of the death process as a very natural occurrence is making it much easier to accomplish peace inside and to realize the plan in the sense of accomplish the plan. Here are many mechanisms that are just being triggered after someone's physical body is just leaving physicality. Now I want to talk a little about how the family is sometimes making it difficult for the soul to go away. The sadness that the near ones are experiencing after someone left the physical level is very understandable and it's very natural. However, this sadness and this grief needs to end one day. Otherwise, this is going to be the reason for the soul not being able to go away, because this sadness is building a strong bond between the family and the soul that is in the process of going away. Sometimes we have the lucky situation where the family is just loving their near one. I mean truly loving. This means that you are just giving freedom to the soul to just pass from this physical level, to just go away and to just do according to its wishes. And there is never a problem with the soul going away. It can leave freely and it is being just supported by their near ones. Unfortunately, most of the time, our grief is so intense that we are just not allowing the soul to go. And this grief in the end is originating from the fear that something can be taken from us, something that is essential to our existence. And that is just basically not possible. Something that is essential for our existence is always available. And we need to just think about that as soon as someone is dying. And we need to remind ourselves that the good of the soul that is being in the process of going away is more important than our own desires. Because these desires are actually very egoistic. So we need to get rid of any egoism. It is just making our life bad. It is bringing destruction into our lives. It is just the opposite of love. I mean the love of the Creator. We should therefore never stop the soul from going away. This can have a lot of negative consequences for the soul, but in the end it will have a lot of consequences for us, because when the soul stays, it needs to have energy from some source, and if it stays, it will have to feed from our own energy, and that is going to create a lot of negative circumstances for us. We need to get away our energy. We need to live the astral horror that is becoming the horror of the going soul when it stays in the physical vibrational levels, which are full of jealousy, envy, anger, hate, and fear itself. The help that we can give to the going soul is the understanding of the dying process. It is not an occurrence that is giving the people ultimate pain. It is a process that is just natural, and it is something that should support the soul. We need to pray silently on the inside for the good of the going soul. We should see the living soul having no difficulties whatsoever, being able to freely go into the light, into the higher vibrational level of the astral world. So our help can be essential in the dying process. You could say, for example, Peter, if that's the name of the relative that has just died physically, you can say very peacefully, very calm, you are no longer alive physically. You are only alive in your higher substances. You need to accept it. We have accepted it. You need to forgive yourself everything. We have forgiven you everything. God has also forgiven you everything. And therefore, we should prepare for the dying process already in a young age. We can have a long lifetime. We can have a short lifetime. We never know what's the best scenario for our soul to go away. And that is why we should be just accepting the dying process from early childhood even. We should explain our kids what death is all about. That it's a process of going back to the source. And it has a great meaning to prepare and educate about the death process. It is about the fact that we need to get accustomed to the idea that death is a process that is just natural, that there is nothing wrong with death, and most of all we need to just remind ourselves that we should not be afraid of the dying. The dying is not there to give us separation. The death is only a process in which we are just regenerated from the difficulties of the lifetime in the physical body, in a very, very dense body. What you need to see is that we are not our physical body. And then there is this higher vibrational realm, which is the emotional world and emotional body. It vibrates at a much faster pace than the physical world. And then there is another yet faster realm, which is called the mental. And the soul, our inner core, namely the causal body, is needing to lower its vibration to very, very slow vibrational levels. It gets the mental body, which is incredibly lower vibrating than the causal body. Then it gets the emotions, which is even dramatically slowing down the vibrations of the soul. And then we are getting the physical body, which is the most dense substance known to human souls. So it is very, very difficult to operate the physical body for the soul, because its vibrational levels are slowed down a lot. So it is very difficult and energy consuming for the soul to live in the physical world. If you go to sleep and you raise your vibrational level to the emotional level, then you see how full of life you are on the emotional level. That is because we are in our inner core vibrating at a much, much faster pace. And then when we get back to the mental, we are vibrating incredibly faster than on the astral level. And then when we get to the causal level, that's the first level where we are at home. So lighting a candle after someone has died, so that it reminds us that we need to just give the departing soul courage and support, is very, very good. We can pray and we can talk about it. And these things are making it for us easier to accept the parting from that soul, and it's a very, very good thing for the soul, for the living soul itself. Maybe in the end I will just talk a little bit about a situation where someone is dying in an accident. There the situation is pretty special because the soul is in a state of shock, and that same shock we are experiencing also for ourselves. And that are moments where we need to just be very, very concentrated on our thoughts. We may not get into the vibrations of sudden surprise, of sudden death, because that is just making us uneasy. It takes our peace from us. So if we are not very, very peaceful after someone is dying, then it may be a very great problem for the soul to go away. And that is why we need to be at peace. We need to give the living soul as much courage as we only can, and as much support as we only can. The basic thing here is, however, to approach the death of someone near, someone we love dearly, is to understand the mechanics of how the death process is going on and where it is originating from. So this is knowledge, and that is the reason why the book Possessed by Ghosts has been written, to give the public the understanding what the soul is really going through when it's going away, because it is helping the living soul, the departing soul, a lot in accomplishing this process wisely. Okay, I thank you so much for listening, and see you again in 2 weeks. Bye bye.